Hi, I'm Maria, and this is the Agile State of Mind. Welcome! So, what does failure mean? Does it mean that something didn't turn out the way we wanted it to? Is trying and failing a failure? What about not trying at all? They say that to be innovative, you need to actively celebrate risk-taking and failure. Laura Garnett explains in INC why failing can be a critical stepping stone to success, and describes the failures of Elon Musk. Could it be that every experience, failed or succeeded, is actually a success? SpaceX is willing to tolerate some failure to go fast, and failures of Elon Musk's spaceships are epic. Jim Bridenstine, NASA administrator, says about SpaceX, they test, they fail, they fix, they fly, and so on iteratively. This is the iterative kind of development we encourage with Agile, maybe except for the explosions. But is failure celebration a way to go? I see a lot of articles emerging about the so-called failure porn, like the one written by Jeff Lewis. He explains that the celebration can also go too far. So there's even an annual conference of failed startups called FailedCon. The key is to find a balance. Fear failure enough to try very hard to succeed, yet not so much that we don't try new things. Today, I would like to explore how to help the teams and organizations create a safe-to-fail environment. So let's see how we can convert failures into learning opportunities, just like they do it in SpaceX. Coming down from the space on Earth, we can find some examples of failure celebration too. Daniel Ek, the Spotify's founder, says we aim to make mistakes faster than anyone else. He aims to create an environment where failure recovery takes precedence over failure avoidance. To inspect. To achieve that, so I got a new plant. Doesn't move so much. What are the benefits of failure celebration? For one, it helps to foster honesty and authenticity. In the end, people do and will make mistakes. We can simply acknowledge it and learn from them. Or we can hide them and pretend it's all fine. Or better yet, blame others. So I worked in two companies that took a completely different stance on failure. In one company, we practiced failure avoidance, or we ignored failures. And in the other, it was okay to admit a mistake. In the first company, you could only learn about great success during monthly meetings. When asked, how's it going? Any manager would tell you it was going great. And from time to time, there would be a new enemy to blame for any misfortunes. In the second company, on monthly meetings, the lead would share his failures along with the learnings, and he would encourage everyone to do so. So the outcome was that in the first company, there was a strong division between us and them, our team, versus the rest. And individual heroes emerged who acted as lone wolves. Since the company was only promoting success, it felt in wrong tone to admit mistakes or ask for help. As a result, there was little trust and little collaboration. So in the second company, the team members were not afraid to admit their mistakes or that they didn't know something. They were not afraid to ask for help, and it was actually actively encouraged. And this is how we arrived at the psychological safety. The extensive study on high-performing teams at Google showed that there are 5 traits to a successful team. And the first and fundamental trait was psychological safety. It is the underpinning of the other 4, and that's why we will take a closer look at it. The author of the rework article about this Google study summarizes what psychological safety is in one question. Can we take risks on this team without feeling insecure or embarrassed? There is no team without trust. Paul Santagata, head of industry at Google, says, in Google's fast-paced, highly demanding environment, our success hinges on the ability to take risks and be vulnerable in front of peers. That also means being able to admit that you don't know or understand something without getting ridiculed. This allows the teams to take moderate risks, speak their minds, and challenge the status quo. Basically, to stick out your head without the fear of getting it cut off. Interestingly, one of the key conclusions from the aforementioned study was that it didn't matter who is on the team. The personalities or skill sets weren't of much importance. What mattered was the belief that you won't be punished when you make a mistake. Moreover, the team members could count on each other, had clear goals, and believed their contribution mattered. And now let's move on to some practical examples on how to do it. How to create psychological safety for our teams. How can we liberate the teams from the fear of failure? 1. Elaborate working agreements. Start from brainstorming with the team what they need for good atmosphere and collaboration. Let the team define how to keep their interactions and conversations productive and positive. For that, you can use Scrum and Agile values and principles to help the team start the conversation going. 2. Get to know each other. It is easier to establish a safe environment for people who know each other, if they know what others like and what's hard for them to deal with. I once did a great exercise with the fellow Scrum Masters to better understand each other. It was called the washing machine instructions, and it consisted of making a list of what to do and what not to do with them, just as it is shown on the label of a piece of clothing. 3. Measure psychological safety. Send recurrent surveys to measure how safe the teams feel within the team and in the organization. There are many examples on the internet, and the one Google uses is linked in my Medium article below. All in all, what matters is to see human beings. Coach the team to see the other team members not as obstacles to overcome, but as people with hopes, dreams, fears, and aspirations, just like themselves. It makes a lot of a difference, especially in the face of conflict. This comes from the book Coaching Agile Teams by Lisa Atkins, and it played a big role for me in changing my attitude towards coaching the teams. Now that we have the psychological safety, how do we help the teams learn from failure? Once we are mindful of creating psychological safety for our teams, it's time to move on and encourage them to take moderate risks. I really like 2 outcomes we get from failure: getting better at solving problems, and that making mistakes help us get perspective. We realize that it's not the end of the world, and it helps us change our attitude towards risk-taking. And here are some tips on how to create safe-to-fail environment. 1. Lead by example. Be the first to share your failures. Show the teams that it is okay to admit that you have failed, provided that you can share lessons from your mistake. Ask everyone to share their failures and create a failure wall that you can review during your monthly update. 2. Run recurrent retrospectives and agile postmortems. Both are great to strengthen transparency and growth for the teams. We need to stop and think why something went wrong and reinforce what went well. You can learn more about Agile Retrospectives and Postmortems in my video here or here, somewhere here, and also linked in the description below. 3. Schedule hacking days. Any form of hackathons sponsored by the company ignites creativity among the teams. Not to mention how enjoyable of a team-building activity it can be. This way, the teams have almost laboratory-like environment to try new things without consequences for the live product. They can develop what they've always wanted to implement and see if it actually works out. 4. Kill ideas. Steve Jobs said, deciding what not to do is just as important as deciding what to do. Take the risk of discontinuing some of the ideas you have been postponing for months. This brings the focus to what matters. And last but not least, don't blame. Focus on what you learned and what needs changing. Make sure a retrospective or a failure celebration does not turn into a blaming exercise. If someone wants to admit they made a mistake, encourage them, but never point fingers. Creating psychological safety at work has so many benefits that it should be high on the agenda of every leader and agile coach. It fosters an environment where people can be authentic, creative, and ultimately innovative. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. 2. Today we will talk about how to Scrum teams. To achieve that, in Scrum I just do this. I'm not even